Hey, everybody, welcome to TNMCoaching Unplugged, the podcast where we explore the future of coaching, human potential, and evolution of leadership. Today, I have an honor on welcoming a true legend in our coaching field, Michael Stratford. Michael is the master coach. He is a provocateur of transformation. He's also a teacher, also an author, and somebody who has spent more than 30 years in championing one of the most essential truths about our profession, that is coaching, that the human uniqueness is the secret that coaching exists to honor. What I love about Michael is that it brings multiplicity of qualities that we rarely see in one person. That's what makes him really, really unique and special coach that I learned so much from. He's a deeply wise. He is a fun and brilliant comedian. He has this extensive mastery to build from the 56 different careers of thousands of coaching conversations across every industry you can imagine, from rock bands to Fortune 500 executives. He has also trained more than 8,000 coaches worldwide, which is a lot of coaches, if you imagine that. He's written books such Masterful Question, The Hidden Motivators, and through his road, he truly shaped the coach training schools across the road, including my school as well. He's currently teaching in China. He's beautiful and amazing level 1 and level 3 ICF certificate coach training programs. He's also visionary behind the Million Quest Consciousness, a movement designed to positively impact 1 million beings, and creator of groundbreaking gamifying self-transcendence experience called 7 Realms of Self-Mastery that he's also launching in China. But at the heart of everything that Michael does, it's one message. Coaching is not about fixing. We know that. Coaching is not about improving. We might know that or not know that. Coaching is about honoring who we truly are and helping you bring the essence into that world with true courage, congruence, and creativity. Today, we're going to dive into exactly that. We're going to look into how do we honor that uniqueness, which is the true core of coaching. Michael, welcome to TNMCoaching Unplugged. So lovely to see you.
It's great to see you, Zoran. It's been such a long time. We've seen each other, in the early days at a number of conferences and spent a good bit of time together on calls and things like that. And this is a really nice reconnection for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that, some of the audience doesn't know that Michael was very significant in my early coaching career. As some of you know, I've started coaching very early. And at that time, Michael was my teacher and my guide at that point in time, my coach. I've learned so much from Michael. So I'm also so grateful to have Michael as somebody that I really, really value in the coaching industry. So let's dive into it, Michael. This uniqueness that really matters in coaching relationship. Tell me a little bit more about why did you come to that moment of distilling what really matters and how that came about in your coaching journey?
Well, I'll probably go at that in a couple of different ways, but one is that it's mathematically provable that we are unique. I went to school for mathematics and theater, and so I can prove that we are absolutely unique. Each one of us, one of a kind. And at the beginning of coaching, one of the things that I became aware of is that it's at the heart of the process of coaching. And what I mean by that is that it's the recognition that there is no other one like you. And what that means then is in the behavior of the relationship of the coach to the client, it says, therefore, if there is no other one like you, then there is no other similar way. My way, the previous ways of doing things. There is a way that absolutely matches your uniqueness. And it's the one thing that distinguishes coaching from everything else. The message of all other modalities of personal and professional development, evolution, are all grounded in the assumption that there is similarity of success, and if we find the similarity, we can repeat it, and then, like a factory, produce more. Okay, so they're basically saying the single message: be like me. Whether it's consulting, therapy, mentoring, teaching, training, advising, counseling, managing, whatever it is, they're saying, be like me, do this, and you will be a success. And I recognized very early on through a number of experiences that coaching is this singular profession that says, no, it's not be like me. It's be like you. The purest, most distilled version of you, almost like an element on the periodic table. Oxygen is oxygen, right? It's not like any other element in that its properties are singular to oxygen. Yes, it's a gas, so it has seeming similarity. And that's where most people would go. You and I have a male function, and that's a seeming similarity. But on the elemental level, oxygen is distinct from hydrogen, just in its pure nature.
Right.
So if we treat human beings with that, we say, instead of, I know how you should succeed, we say, I don't know how you succeed, but together we can go find out. Let's go. Let's find a path, a solution, a philosophy, a strategy, behavior patterns that absolutely fit you on a cellular level. And when they do have that level of harmony and congruence, then it's highly sustainable. The rest of everything else says, yeah, wear the coat of my success.
Right.
But your skin fits you like nothing else. So that's the first aspect of it.
And beautiful that you're sharing this, because I also, in my coaching journey, came to that conclusion. I think this is something that when you coach for a very long time, you come to the essential elements of what really creates coaching success, and how do we really relate to people in the most beautiful way. And what you're sharing is that deep relating and deep recognition. What I was struggling with, and I really would love to ask you that question as well, that sometimes when we introduce this concept of uniqueness, people somehow tend to either not believing it or don't know how to get in relationship with that aspects of themselves, right?
Yeah.
So from your take, how do we do that?
Well, it is a process, because what we have to realize is that what we're up against is thousands of years of cultural conditioning
Right.
that say, be like me, be like the rest of the tribe. And there's also an almost epigenetic warning against uniqueness, because it's essentially saying you're different. And if you go back in time, if you were different, you were perceived as a threat to the survival of the tribe. If you were the same, we knew what to do with you. But if you're different, we don't know what to do with you, which meant potential banishment from the tribe for that difference. So that message comes down through millennia.
Right. And
To give us,
we feel it in
yes,
our epigenetic, we feel it in our body, right? It's there.
yes, exactly. And so now people go, yeah, I'm different. I'm going to pay for that. And banishment was tantamount to a death sentence, except it was a death sentence with accountability by the tribe. They say, we're not going to kill you because you're different. We're just going to banish you, in which case you were most likely to die by being on your own, because if anything happened to you, you were done.
Right.
Creatures, you break a leg, that's it. You can't eat, you can't hunt, you can't do anything. You're done. So being isolated in that way was a death sentence. And epigenetically, that transfers. So that's part of what we have to recognize, is that that's what's one of the things that's underneath it all. Then you take a look at it and you go, okay, so what's the constant message? Best practices, things like that. We hear that all the time, trainings, et cetera, et cetera. And so we try to find something down. Personality assessments. You are a this. You are one of 16 kinds of this. And while those assessments are useful for an opening conversation, they still do not get at your true essence. But I find a different challenge, and perhaps you do, and I'd like to hear from you about that as well. One of the different challenges is that people think that their behavior is an expression of their uniqueness. And that's not accurate, because our behavior is something that we created on a strategic level for our survival that may or may not be who we really are, but it is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at that who level that we both work at in the realm of coaching and transformation that the essence of it truly appears. But people think, yeah, that's just how I am. I'm unique. I behave like this all the time. No, behavior is learned on top of who we are. So I have an exercise that I sometimes give people to play with. And feel free to, share
No,
this with anyone.
of
Um,
course.
um, and it came about because I was working with a client in a pharmaceutical, and he and his wife had just gotten pregnant or recently, and they were about to have this boy. And he was a self-professed workaholic. That was his sense of self. I'm a workaholic, 60, 70, 8 hours a week. And then all of a sudden he had this awareness of this new child. And he said, I want to spend this time with this boy. And this became this blossoming energy of intention, but he couldn't stop his workaholic behavior. He came up with strategies, tactics, plans, all of that sort of stuff that we do intellectually. And he said, so, can you help me? And I said, I don't know. Let's go find out. And I came across this question. It kind of came through, as they do, through the sort of portal of consciousness. I said, who are you without work? And his answer was fast. Nothing. And I sat there. And he sat there as we both listened to his sense of identity that he was nothing without work. That was, from his perception, who he was. So obviously, giving up that attachment to that identity would be extraordinarily difficult, because he would be giving up who he was for his entire life to change. And so I said, does that give you some kind of awareness about why it's so difficult? And he says, it's horrible. I'm shocked. And I said, so what do you want to do with that information? He goes, I want to change it. I want to change it. Can you help me? And I said, well, as long as we don't work at it. And he caught that. And so we both laughed a little bit about it, but he did go about it. But we realized that the shift had to come on the being level. It wasn't about the doing, because his attachment to identity was that, which then prompted for me an awareness of a potential exercise for all of us. For myself, I went through it. And it is to make a list of all of the things that we think we are. I am my achievements, my accomplishments. I am my books. I am my relationships. I am my culture. I am my traditions. I am my knowledge. I am my information. I am this, all of that we normally say. And you make a list of it and you go through and you put, who am I without? One at a time, the fill in the blank, whatever that is. Whatever you think you are, who am I without that? And you sit with a kind of deep reflection of that. And one by one, over time, as you start to challenge it, you subtract them as your sense of self. That isn't who you are, really. It is what you think you are. So yeah, I've written books. So what? That's not who I am. Am I a father? That's a role I play. But at 1 year old, I wasn't a father. So that's not who I am. I was a being then. Right? I am not my accomplishments. The only thing I accomplished at 1 year old was I was busy, like pooping and crying, and that was it. Those were my accomplishments. So I'm not my accomplishments.
Right.
Which is what people attach to a lot. That's who I am. So eventually, and it's different for everybody, you may not be able to find a descriptor about who you are. There's no label. I got to, for me personally, when I asked that question, who am I without all that stuff? I went, I am me. And it rippled throughout my entire being as an awareness. It wasn't my values. It wasn't my needs. It wasn't my beliefs. It wasn't my mental models, everything that I'd learned, all of that sort of stuff. I am me. And that changed my relationship It also supported connecting to my uniqueness. And because it was being wide, now all of a sudden, I had a very clear, almost hypersensitivity to what was not me, which then affected all of the choices and opportunities I would take or not take. Because I would go, that's not, that doesn't feel like it fits me.
Right.
Yeah. And then I recommended people to take the shoe test, which is when you go buying shoes, you put on a shoe that fits you for purpose, for sustainability, for price, for for look, for color, all of that sort of stuff, for your wardrobe, etc. But it fits your foot. Fits your foot. And if you don't, what do? Put it back on the rack. It doesn't say that the shoe is bad. It just says it does not fit you. Because if it doesn't fit you, in a very short time walking around with it, or even doing an 8-hour presentation and in training like you do, you'll get blisters by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's a very physical one to have people test.
Mm-hmm.
And then with those two things in hand, that's what I tend to work with people on at times. And what I found is that no matter what they come to the coaching for me, whatever the topic is, whether it's leadership, health, relationship, money, career, vision, all of that sort of stuff, they are like doors on the outside of a rotunda. They come through that door, but in the middle of the room is a conversation about the uniqueness. It's always there. So the question isn't, am I being the best self? That's going to go up and down on any given day. But am I being the most me I can be? The purest, elemental, distilled down all of the other elements and impurities out, me, in an interaction. Am I being the purest version of me I can be? And then I pour that essence into whatever activities I engage with. So my question for you is that you do a lot of leadership work, transformational work. You do train coaches as well. And I've been training them for quite a long time, helping them with their personal evolution. How do you go about getting this process to open up for people? Since you and I both believe it's at the heart of coaching, how do you help them get connected with that pure essence of themselves?
Mm. Yeah, beautiful question. Back to me, a similar, process that you do a little bit different for me as well, because I also get into that space of uniqueness by introducing some spiritual language as well. And sometimes the spiritual language can work well and sometimes doesn't, like I love it using the language, can you be you, me, owning me. I also tell them that in the essence, when we connect our soul, and I relate to my soul as the purest, the most unique essence of who I am, before any conditioning, before any beliefs, before any needs, before any values. This is the essential part of who I am, which is my soul. And I also define soul as something eternal, something that exists throughout the time, something that never is able to be destroyed, something that transforms, morphs from one state to another state, and something that is unique signature, your unique soul signature, which is your essence. That's my definition. As I said, yours one is a little bit better because sometimes when I introduce this, I get into conversation around soul and religious and spirituality and new age. Sometimes it can be a little bit challenging for people to relate to it, but I take it from that point of view. And then that unique essence of your soul, this is the purest and the most innocent part of you. So I get people to do the exercise when they look into the purest and most innocent part of themselves, something that we call inner child, but for me, it's a little deeper than the inner child, something that is not conditioned, something that is really, really connected, something that is loving, kind, compassionate, present, something that in the essence, it's goodness, because I also believe that everybody on the essential point of view, ignoring their behaviors, are good in the essence, right? There is no evil human being. So to connect them to that pureness of the essence of goodness, greatness, compassion, courage, love, and to practice that level of connecting to ourselves
Mm.
gets them into that space of really understanding a deep essential part of themselves. And then for me, like for you, I ask people to carry out that essence into the world in a best
Yes.
possible way without being afraid, because I think this essence is also that uniqueness. It's also vulnerable in a way. Sometimes we are right protecting it. We are struggling
Hmm.
to be ourselves fully because we feel if that vulnerable essential part of ourselves is fully carried into the world, it's difficult, it's not received well sometimes, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly. And it is a vulnerable place because another one of the things that we fear is rejection on a very deep level. That's a very deep old piece. And that's that fear of isolation,
Right.
and with that comes a thought, well, if I am purely me, who will want that? What if they don't want that?
Mm.
That's a deeply, deeply vulnerable. The idea of then therefore going through the world alone. And it's ironic because actually, um, it's like what we do is that we're a lighthouse emitting a rainbow instead of the unique signature color that we are. And because we emit a rainbow, lots of people will come, they'll go, yeah, the color is kind of there. So they're a kind of good fit for us, but not really.
Mm.
But when we emit that color, everybody who's been waiting to see that pure color, they go, oh, there it is. It's so easy to see now. So
Yeah.
now all of a sudden, what happens is that instead of people who are a misfit to some
Mm.
percentage, 50, 60, 70%, now all of a sudden we get all of these 95% fit people
Mm.
that we're going, I've been waiting to see that unique
Sure.
being. I've been waiting to see that. But before that is that threshold of vulnerability that we have to step across and have the courage to say, I'm going to be me no matter what.
Mm.
And I'm also going to trust that I would not be created in
Mhm.
this unique expression if it was intended that I not participate in the world, that
Exactly.
I be isolated
Mhm.
from participation.
Mhm.
And it takes guts.
Thanks, God. This is exactly what I wanted to comment. It's courageous act. Sometimes, you really have to go to this threshold of vulnerability back into the world. And for me, when that threshold is passed, then the unfolding of that, Michael, from my point of view, is that people can really be in this congruency, integrity, and authenticity. And I feel that when we pass the threshold congruency, which is you being you, integrity, you being you no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Authenticity, you expressing you no matter what, it's a stronghold from that on. And in my own life, when I managed to pass that, yeah, I always use this when I teach as well, it really gave me a completely different level of life experience, engagement, opportunity,
Yes.
right? Because somehow we step into that the life then says, all right, there you are, now you're showing up fully. Let's play, right? Let's see what will happen from this point on when it comes to your courageousness, congruency, integrity, and then authenticity, being able to express that.
Yes. It also takes guts on a very practical level.
Mm.
It's not just about how people relate to you, is that there are consequences of us being ourselves in a full expression. And that may mean that we may be out of a job. Um, and the fear of not being able to have that kind of support, et cetera, income, survival now kicks in, makes it even compounded. And so, for me, and for you as well, this profession fits us.
Mhm.
It fits us as an expression of our being, in that journey to being ourselves. This is a profession, and this is the other thing that people don't recognize when they're on the path to being themselves. This profession didn't exist 50 years ago.
Yeah,
So
correct.
the other element of coaching that is part of the essence of it is possibility.
Yeah,
And so now all of a sudden we have to recognize that, yeah, you may not fit in the way the work world is right now. That doesn't mean that there isn't a way for you to have income and for you to create one. Because if you go back 30 years or so, skateboarding wasn't a profession. It was what
exactly.
you did. You'd swim in somebody's pool that was empty over the summer or whatever on the streets, etc. But then all of a sudden, look where it is.
Mm.
X Games all over the world, people making millions, making hundreds of $1,000s, endorsements. It's a sport and
Yeah,
it's an Olympic sport. And so it takes the guts to hold it long enough to say, yes, there may not be a job. I may have to go through interim jobs until I either find the one that fits me, modify one that exists to fit me, or create a completely new one, such
exactly.
as influencer. We
Hmm.
didn't have that profession, you know. It's like, now all of a sudden we have people going, hi, I'm now at this place in travel. Look at me, watch me. And now all of a sudden their living is based on this new category called influencer.
Yeah.
And it's essentially being willing to be at times potentially an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
to discover a new profession for you if one doesn't exist. That's why I also support people in the journey of, if you're going to go on this path to get living from the uniqueness of you, let's look at it as a transition on a
Right.
practical level.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just as if you were going to change jobs with a company.
Hmm.
You don't want to just quit, because that's going to put your reserves at risk. In a job market that's tight, that would make it difficult. If you want to transition out, that's a different question, so that you don't have to suffer and find yourself compromising in order to survive.
Mm.
So the journey to uniqueness has practical considerations as well as spiritual and metaphysical considerations.
Yeah. And I love that you bring in the practical consideration, because for a lot of people, that's a hesitation, isn't it?
Yeah.
That distinction that you just shared with us, transition versus just cut off point, and then finding yourself in like, wow, what do I do now? Like, how do
Yeah.
you transition? I think it's super important for nervous system to relax and for us to know that, exactly as you said, you might need to do a few steps to get there. But when you get there, it's worth it, because you will fit within your own skin and you will be able to be congruent with what you need to share.
Yeah, exactly. And fitting within your own skin is a key element of having a peaceful existence. Actually, in the
Mhm.
beginning, doesn't feels exactly the opposite. But when we fit in our own skin, we don't have to try and remember all the faces we've been presenting to all the different people in our lives, all these different faces.
Mhm.
People talk about authenticity. I talk about just being real, being genuine, all of that, honest.
Yes.
It's not because it's a moral position for me.
Hmm.
It's simply because it's easier. If I show up as me all the time, then I don't have to remember what face I presented to that person in business and that person in sports and that person at play. I just
Yeah.
show up as me. It's
Yeah.
just simpler.
Yeah. And do you think, I mean, just a side question, now come back to this deeper conversation. Do you think that comes with age and becoming more wise, or do you think anybody can choose that?
Oh, the just being you?
Yeah.
Yes, they can. Um, but as I said, the trap is I'm just now a crotchety old man. That's just who I am. No, that's not. It's still a behavioral strategy choice. You don't have to be that,
Yeah, exactly.
because it's actually not who you are. And
Right.
it's even gotten for me, though, to the point where when people ask me a doing question, I answer with a doing answer. So they say, so what do you do? I say, I coach. I train people. I ride my bicycle. I garden. I paint the house. You ask me a doing question, I'm going to tell you the things I do.
Yeah.
I don't answer with a being answer, which is what almost everybody does. They
Mm.
say, I am a coach. No, that's not who you are. Am is a being
Hmm.
verb.
Mm.
That is not who you are.
Hmm.
Because before 30 years ago, 40 years ago, Coaching didn't exist. So that can't be who you are.
Mhm.
You were a being before coaching came in. Who are you now? So being willing to shed the attachments to those identifiers as a sense of security,
Right.
because they are actually primarily externally referenced. We have some internal ones like our beliefs, values, our needs, all of that sort of mental models. Those are internal ones, but they're still attachments. But a lot of the identifiers are external. So when somebody says that's not you, I go, let me check. Yeah, I
Love
think
that.
you're right. I'll check. I don't know.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also led me to another question, which was not about what do I want to do going forward in my life. That's something, we all look at. What do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish? Which, by the way, I'm way over accomplishing. Um, uh, I found a question for me, which is, given that we're all going to die, how do I want to experience my life on a daily basis between now and then? What are the descriptors of the life experience I want to be having? Because when you think about it, all the goals are actually designed to give you a particular life experience. So the goal isn't really the point. Somebody says, I want to have $10 million so I can retire. Okay, so what's that going to give you don't have now? It's going to give me freedom of choice. That's what you're really after, is freedom of choice. What if it didn't take $10 million? What if you could get it at 5? What if you could get it at less? So now all of a sudden I have this list of words that are descriptors for the life experience I want to have on a daily basis. So I have things like, I want to experience deep, rich relationship, connection with people. I want to experience compassion. I want to have fun and play. I want to be used well for what I am good at. I want to get a great ROI on the return of the investment of energy and time and financial and emotion. So that's what I want to experience. Now, I can do that riding my bicycle. I can do that in the role of work. I can do that in a different job. Doesn't matter, because that's actually what has become important to me as I have put more mileage on this unit called Michael, you know. Um, and I got to the spot where it's about experiencing my life.
Mhm. Mm.
And so when an opportunity comes along, a contract comes along and says, okay, yeah, we want you to coach this senior vice president. And I go in and I investigate it, meet with the HR people, meet with the guy, meet with the owner of the company, and that sort of stuff. And I go, yeah, that's a $50K contract. That's nice. But it's a freaking nightmare. And I can tell already, no, I do not want that, because I'm in a position to no longer feel like I have to take something
Yeah.
that is going to give me an experience I do not want.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
beginning, in the role of coach, I had to.
Yeah, of course.
But later, I spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of, I won't say sacrifice, but I would say wise spending to make
Mhm.
sure that I would position myself so that I could say no to any client if it wasn't a fit, because my life experience is far more precious
Mhm.
than a fat contract. My time with my wife, walking through the neighborhood, counting bunnies as we walk, that's far more precious to me than making a fat paycheck, having some big accomplishment somewhere. I just, that's part of what's shifted with age.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What really matters, that
Yes.
what really matters. And that's important. I mean, even if you're not at that stage or that age in your life, it's, internalizing that, bring that forward, would save a lot of beautiful energy and time, because people reflect on that, what really matters to them later on in the life. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful share there. And I love that you're in that position. to really distill what really matters.
Yes. And it's actually one of the things that I'd be eternally grateful to the profession of coaching that it brought me to is a distinction between above the line and below the line. And we see a lot of our clients come to us from below the line. And I don't mean I'm talking about economic poverty, although that may be for some people. Below the line is the process of, and the line is defined as, my life works exactly the way I want it to. So most of the people that come to us are people who are trying to get to that line. My life works exactly the way I want it to. And they get to that line and several things happen. One of them is sometimes they self-sabotage because it's more comfortable and familiar to be striving for them than it is to be all of a sudden everything works and I don't know what to do with myself. Sometimes the line shifts because of the entropy of the universe, and the inner universe is evolving. So now what looked like I was in a good level, and now I have to move a little bit more. But the interesting thing that's really cool is when you get to coach clients who are above the line. And above the line is defined as, now that my life is working exactly the way I want it to, what do I want my life to be about?
Yeah.
And that's where the legacy question comes in. And I know a lot of people work on legacy from below the line, but it's very different because they're working on legacy as part of getting to the line. They're not working on legacy from being at that line. And I already know the legacy that I probably have and that I've wanted, which is I just have wanted people to see me as me, appreciate me for being me, and to be a good human. And that's what I want them to remember. If they remember anything else, wisdom, books, teaching, training, all of that sort of stuff, fine. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. How much money did he make? I don't care. I don't care. I don't need monuments or any of that sort of stuff. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I do have an awareness of how I want to be remembered as a human, which is probably the most important thing to me because that is our most significant accomplishment, who we become in the process of life.
I love that. And I really, really want to kind of give it a little bit of the space of silence just for this to sift into the consciousness of the listeners. Who do we become in the process of life?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what completely changed my orientation toward goals. Because, and it's something that I'm going to share with you a quote from one of my favorite coaches, although he was a basketball coach, Phil Jackson, the NBA coach, 11-time championship. And he said, in the long run, nothing's more important than the evolution of consciousness. Winning championships is the greatest feeling in the world, but it passes. In even the best case scenario, it's just a byproduct. What doesn't pass is the opportunity it offers each individual player for personal growth and evolving consciousness. So I know, right? When we go for a championship, it's not about the championship. It looks like that. There's a lot of agreement that that's what the most important thing. But if you take a look at somebody going for Olympic gold, which is coming up, in January or February, not everybody can win the Olympic gold. Does that mean their life was meaningless? It's who they become in attempting to win the Olympic gold that matters. The gold is great to get, but then they're going to have it. And then it's going to be, what have you done for me lately? The next year, the next Olympics. And you take a look at some of the young female gymnasts, right? By 27, their career is over in that role. They have an entire lifetime left. And what has mattered is who they became in the process of seeking that gold, that championship, that's what is going to carry forward. So this even translates for us supporting coaches. The MCC credential, nice, okay. But it's who you become and attempting to acquire that matters long after you get it, if you do.
Yep.
It's who we become in the process of life.
Beautiful. Thank you for that quote, and thank you for that. I'm just kind of slowing down because sometimes in the podcast it's so beautiful when you say something like that that really resonates, and definitely resonated with my soul and my entire all the cells in my body is like, yay! Who do we become?
Yes.
Who do we become? So for coaches and also for people, for humans who are listening now, and as we're coming towards the wrap up, and you and I can talk for another 100 hours, we can have a marathon podcast where they can unfold deeper and deeper. What would you say, what would be a call for action in a way? Where do we start? When people who are listening to us and saying, yes, everything Michael shared with me, everything Zoran mentioned as well. Yes, I'm feeling yes to this. I do want to honor my uniqueness. I do want to step into that space of, knowing me, being congruent, being creative, being courageous, me. As you said, being a good human. And if they're lost a little bit, or they got seduced by success, or they got seduced by acquisition, they got seduced by internal programming, external programming, social media, I need to be, I want to acquire, I must acquire certain kind of identity or status to feel the value, to feel that I matter. And people do, like people do get seduced by that. It's that temptation is strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where do they start? How they go back into that journey that you are indicating, that we're talking about, going back into becoming more of themselves and being more of who they are?
Well, this is going to seem odd in some ways, but it's actually not, given the profession and our conversation. I would say use a coach to find out how you get back there in your own unique way. Have that be the starting point and say, I want to get back to my uniqueness, because the coach is going to go, okay, so how do you want to approach that? Instead of there being necessarily a formulaic approach to getting back to your uniqueness. Get a coach, use a coach. I had one for 17 years and he worked with me through all sorts of evolutions of myself. And it wasn't because he sucked. He was wonderful. It was, I strongly recommend, and for any coach, if you don't have a coach and haven't had a coach for an extended period of time, then you have to understand the message you're putting out into the universe. I believe in coaching. Oh, so how long have you had a coach? Not very long. It's like, it's such an incongruent message. It's such a different message. So what did you get from your coaching when you got coached? Yeah, I only got coached for a little bit in my training classes. Wait, what? You're going to tell me you believe this, but you don't use it? I used it. And that is why, and this is just a message for the coaches, in the selling conversation about coaching, it's why no one can disagree with me about the efficacy of coaching. I know from personal experience that it works. Yeah. I used it to move my life dramatically in many ways. No one can dispute that. Now, they may argue whether or not it's for them or for them at this time or for them at that price. That's a different question. But I have personal experience that says it works. You can't debate that with me.
No, right.
So get that debate off it.
Get that. So call for everybody, including coaches, for listening to that. Get a coach. I had coach for a very long time. I still have a coach. And I'm like with you, Michael, because for me that, it's walking my talk as well and being congruent, but also believing in the benefit of it in unfolding myself.
Yes. And my wife is an MCC coach. So if I want to, I can always ask her for that. And we do. At times we ask each other for some. different bits of coaching. But yeah, it's to say that I've used it, now I'm done with it. That's pointless because the world is changing. It's evolving. You are evolving. It's not that we need a coach. And that's the other message I have. Nobody needs a coach. People have gotten to success without a coach.
Mm-hmm.
However, a coach is a great asset, a great ally to help you accelerate the process of having a better life experience, or even to have a better life experience while you're going for the success. We are wonderful tools for people to use on their behalf. There are other tools out there, and they do different things, those tools. We're a very specific, focused tool. Use us for what we're good at to move your own lives forward. That's what I would say to people who aren't coaches. That's what I would say to people who are in the role of coach. Use us and use us well. Get really clear how to do that. And then use us well. The coach is not a magician. MCC doesn't stand for Magical Certified Coach. Just use us well. We're really pretty good at what we do.
Yes. And with that, Michael, be coming back to the close of this podcast. Thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you so much for being you, 100%. I felt you. I had permission to be me as well, which is absolutely beautiful as well. Yeah, and thank you everybody for tuning in to TNM Coaching Unplugged, and for coming and listening, and thank you for liking us and sharing. We grew a lot in the last few months, so keep on doing that. I hope this conversation and this beautiful talk with Michael is going to inspire your life in the most beautiful way forward. Thank you so much once again for tuning in. And Michael, thank you for everything that you are and who you are.
Thank you, Zoran. And for those of you who are afraid that your uniqueness will leave you isolated, this connection is an absolute demonstration that you can find people who want to be with your uniqueness, and that it makes it easier to be you. Zoran is absolutely unique, one of a kind. He stands in the fullness of it. I stand in the fullness of myself, and we have a great connection. So you're not going to be alone. You'll just find people who are a great fit.
So be it.
Thank you.